The crimson moon of Feller 9 had seen no visitors for 3 cycles, which was exactly how Commander Xelera preferred it. Her silver-skinned form moved with predatory grace through the observation deck of her fortress, violet eyes scanning the barren landscape below. Every movement was calculated, efficient, the result of genetic engineering that had stripped away what her creators called weakness, emotion, love, mercy. The alert chime shattered the silence. "Commander," her lieutenant's voice crackled through the comm. "We've detected a crashed vessel in Sector 7. Scans indicate survivors." Xelera's expression remained unchanged. "Species: human, Commander. 12 adult life signs, and 1 smaller signature." "Interesting. Humans were rare this far from their decimated homeworld." She touched the neural interface at her temple, accessing tactical data. The war had ended 2 years ago with Earth's surrender, but scattered groups still fled through the outer systems like dying embers. "Prepare a capture squad," she ordered. "Bring them in alive. I want intelligence on any remaining human settlements." Within the hour, Xelera stood before the detention cells, observing her prizes. 11 humans, some injured, all defiant despite their circumstances. Her enhanced hearing caught their whispered conversations, their plans for resistance. Predictable. But it was the 12th captive that made her pause. The infant couldn't be more than 6 months old, lying in a makeshift carrier fashioned from ship materials. Its tiny chest rose and fell in peaceful sleep, oblivious to the danger surrounding it. Dark hair curled against a delicate scalp, and miniature fingers were curled into soft fists. "Why did you bring the offspring?" Xelera asked her lieutenant. "Standard protocol, Commander. All survivors were to be captured." She studied the sleeping child. Her people eliminated unnecessary burdens immediately. It was logical, efficient, yet something held her back from giving the order. One of the human males stepped forward, his brown eyes blazing with protective fury. "Please," he said, his voice rough with exhaustion. "The baby. She's done nothing wrong. If you have any mercy." "Mercy is weakness," Xelera replied automatically, the phrase drilled into her since creation. But her gaze remained fixed on the infant. The child stirred, making soft sounds that weren't quite words. Then, impossibly, she opened her eyes, bright blue like Earth's lost oceans, and looked directly at Xelera. Something twisted in Xelera's chest. A malfunction, surely. Her bioengineering shouldn't allow for such sensations. "What is its designation?" she heard herself ask. The human male. She accessed his file. Dex Hawthorne, former Earth defense pilot, straightened. "Her name is Kira. She's all we have left of home." Kira. The child's tiny hand emerged from the carrier, reaching toward nothing with innocent curiosity. Without conscious thought, Xelera found herself kneeling beside the cell, her own hand approaching the barrier. "Commander," her lieutenant questioned. The baby's fingers brushed against the energy field, and she cooed with delight at the gentle tingling sensation. Xelera deactivated the barrier section and extended her hand. The moment Kira's impossibly small fingers wrapped around her larger one, Xelera's world shifted. A jolt of something warm and overwhelming surged through her neural pathways. Not pain, but something her creators had never prepared her for. Her heart rate spiked. Her hands began to tremble almost imperceptibly. The child's grip was so trusting, so completely without fear, that Xelera felt something deep inside her crack like ice in spring. "She likes you," Dex said quietly, wonder replacing some of the hostility in his voice. "She doesn't usually take to strangers." Xelera lifted Kira from the carrier, and the baby nestled against her chest with a contented sigh. The weight was nothing to her enhanced strength, but the emotional impact was staggering. Every instinct screamed that this was wrong, dangerous, a betrayal of everything she was designed to be. Yet she couldn't bring herself to let go. "Commander," her lieutenant pressed, "your orders regarding the prisoners." Xelera looked down at Kira, who had fallen asleep against her, tiny fingers still clutching her uniform. For the first time in her engineered existence, she hesitated. "Transfer them to the secure wing," she finally commanded. "I'll interrogate them personally, tomorrow." As she walked away, still holding the sleeping child, Solara didn't notice Dex watching her with a mixture of hope and confusion. She was too focused on the strange new sensations coursing through her, sensations that felt less like malfunction and more like awakening. In her private quarters that night, Solara sat in her meditation alcove, Kira sleeping peacefully in her arms. She should have returned the child to the detention cells. She should have filed her report and requested immediate prisoner transfer orders. Instead, she found herself gently stroking the baby's soft hair, marveling at how something so small could cause such massive system disruptions in her carefully controlled existence. For the first time since her creation, Commander Solara began to question whether her makers had been right about emotion being weakness. Perhaps they had been afraid of its true power. 3 days had passed since the capture, and Solara found herself making excuses to visit the detention wing. Official business, she told herself. Prisoner assessment. Intelligence gathering. The truth was more complicated. Kira had become a constant presence in her thoughts. The child's laughter echoed through her neural pathways during tactical briefings. Her small hands reaching for Solara's face haunted her meditation cycles. Something fundamental was rewiring itself in her consciousness, and she was powerless to stop it. "You're early today," Dex observed as she approached the cells. His injuries were healing well. She'd ensured the medical drones provided adequate care, though she couldn't explain why his well-being mattered to her. "The child requires assessment," Solara replied, her voice maintaining its usual cold precision, even as her eyes sought Kira immediately. The baby was awake, sitting in her makeshift carrier and babbling happily at the ceiling. When she spotted Solara, her face lit up with pure joy, tiny arms reaching out in unmistakable invitation. "She's been waiting for you," Dex said softly. Every time footsteps echo in the corridor, she looks toward the entrance, almost like she knows. Solara deactivated the barrier and lifted Kira, who immediately curled against her chest with a contented sigh. The familiar warmth spread through her systems, no longer alarming, but somehow necessary. "You're different with her," Dex continued, his voice careful, probing. "Not what I expected from the stories we heard about your kind." "What stories?" Solara asked, though she knew the answer. Her species' reputation was built on cold efficiency and ruthless conquest. "That you were emotionless, incapable of feeling." His brown eyes studied her face intently. "But watching you with Kira, you're gentle, protective, almost." "Almost what?" "Human." The word struck her like a plasma bolt. Human. The species her people had conquered, scattered, nearly destroyed. Yet holding this tiny representative of that supposedly inferior race, Solara felt more alive than she ever had. "Tell me about her," she found herself saying. "About humans." Something shifted in Dex's expression, suspicion melting into cautious hope. "What do you want to know?" "Everything." Over the following hours, as Kira dozed in her arms, Dex spoke of human customs, emotions, relationships. He told her about love, not just the protective bond between parent and child, but the deeper connection between partners who chose each other freely. "Love isn't just feeling," he explained, his voice growing softer as he watched Solara gently rock the sleeping baby. "It's choosing to put someone else's well-being above your own safety. It's finding strength in vulnerability." "That contradicts all tactical logic," Solara murmured, but her conviction wavered. "Does it? You're here, holding her, when your orders likely require something different. You've ensured we're fed, that our injured are treated. That's not tactical. That's compassion." Their eyes met across the cell, and Solara felt another unfamiliar sensation, a flutter in her chest, a warmth that had nothing to do with Kira's small form against her. Dex's gaze was intense but not aggressive, searching her face as if trying to solve a puzzle. "Why are you helping us?" he asked quietly. The honest answer terrified her. "Because holding this child feels like coming home. Because your gratitude makes me want to be worthy of it. Because when you look at me, I don't feel like a weapon. I require information," she said instead, but the words felt hollow. "No," Dex said, standing and moving closer to the barrier. "There's something else. I can see it when you hold her. You're not just protecting a prisoner. You're protecting someone you." He paused, understanding dawning in his eyes. "You love her." The words hung in the air between them like a confession. Silara's grip on Kira tightened protectively, and she felt her carefully constructed defenses crumbling. "Love is weakness," she whispered, but it sounded like a question now. "Love is why I'm still alive," Dex replied. "It's why I fought to get Kira off Earth. It's why I'll do anything to keep her safe." His voice dropped to barely above a whisper. "And I think it's why you're really here." That night, Silara stood in her quarters, Kira sleeping peacefully in a proper crib she had fabricated. The baby's chest rose and fell in perfect rhythm, her tiny features relaxed in complete trust. For the first time in her existence, Silara allowed herself to acknowledge the truth. She loved this child. Completely, irrationally, with every fiber of her being. And increasingly, she found herself thinking about the man who'd helped create that love, whose gentle strength and fierce protectiveness called to something deep within her engineered heart. The realization should have terrified her. Instead, it felt like the first honest thing she'd ever experienced. The transmission arrived at dawn, shattering the fragile peace Silara had begun to build. High Command seal flashed across her private screen. Urgent priority. Eyes-only classification. She accepted the call, her superior's harsh features materializing before her. General Crox, her creator and commanding officer, studied her through the quantum link with cold disapproval. "Commander Silara, your prisoner status report is overdue." "The humans are secured," she replied, fighting to keep her voice steady. "Intelligence gathering is ongoing. Unnecessary. New orders. Execute all prisoners immediately. The Council has decreed that no human survivors may reach the outer colonies. They pose a security risk." The words hit her like ice water. "Sir, the intelligence value is negligible. You have 6 hours to carry out the executions and file your completion report. The transport ship will collect the bodies tomorrow." The connection terminated, leaving Silara staring at the blank screen. 6 hours. 6 hours to destroy everything that had given her life meaning. Her hands trembled as she made her way to the detention wing. Inside, she found Dex teaching Kira simple words, the baby clapping delightedly at each sound. The scene was so perfectly innocent, so full of life and hope, that it felt like a physical blow. "Silara." Dex looked up, immediately sensing something wrong. Over the past week, he'd learned to read her subtle expressions, the minute changes in her posture that betrayed her carefully controlled emotions. "What's happened?" She couldn't speak for a moment, watching Kira reach for her with complete trust. Those blue eyes held no fear, no understanding of what was coming. "Orders," she finally managed. "From High Command." Dex's face went pale. "When?" 6 hours. The other prisoners had fallen silent, understanding passing between them like a current. Some began to weep. Others held each other close. Dex simply stared at Silara, his expression unreadable. "All of us?" he asked quietly. Silara nodded, unable to meet his eyes. "Even Kira." "Even Kira." The words tasted like poison. Dex closed his eyes, pulling the baby closer to his chest. Kira babbled happily, oblivious to the death sentence that hung over them all. "I'm sorry," Silara whispered, and the words felt strange on her lips. She'd never apologized for anything. Apologies were admissions of error, and she was designed to be flawless. "No," Dex said suddenly, standing with Kira in his arms. "You're not sorry. You're terrified." "I don't." You love her. His voice was fierce now, desperate. I've watched you with her. You've held her every day, sung to her in your language, made sure she's fed and warm and safe. You love her more than your own life. It doesn't matter what I feel, Silera said, but her voice cracked. Orders are orders. Then why are you shaking? She looked down at her hands. They were trembling visibly now. Her entire body was betraying her, neural pathways firing in patterns her creators never intended. Because this is wrong, she heard herself say. They're innocent. She's innocent. Dex moved closer to the barrier, Kira reaching out for Silera with a delighted squeal. Without thinking, Silera deactivated the field and took the baby, who immediately settled against her chest with a contented sigh. Then don't do it, Dex said simply. I have to. I'm programmed to obey. You're programmed to feel nothing too, but here you are, holding her like she's your own child. He reached out, his fingers brushing against hers where they supported Kira. Programming can be overridden. The touch sent electricity through her system. Standing this close, sharing the weight of the child they both loved, Silera felt the walls around her heart finally collapse completely. If I disobey, they'll hunt us all. There's nowhere to run. Then we make our own path. Dex's hand covered hers fully now, warm and steady. Together. The word hung between them, heavy with implication. Together. Not just protecting Kira, but building something new. Something that had never existed before. A family forged from love rather than genetics. I don't know how to be anything other than what I was made to be, she whispered. Neither do I, anymore. Earth is gone. Everything I was trained for is over. But maybe. He leaned closer, his voice dropping to an intimate whisper. Maybe we can learn to be something new. Together. Kira chose that moment to grab both their hands, pulling them together with surprising strength. She giggled at her success, and despite everything, Silera felt her lips curve into what might have been her first genuine smile. The transport arrives in 18 hours, she said, her mind already racing through possibilities. My ship has long-range capability, but they'll track us. You're really going to do this? Hope flickered in Dex's eyes. Silera looked down at Kira, who was watching them both with bright, trusting eyes. The baby reached up and touched her face, tiny fingers tracing the silver skin with wonder. I'm going to try. For the first time since her creation, Commander Silera chose love over duty. And in that choice, she found not weakness, but a strength she never knew existed. The escape plan was necessarily simple. Complexity would only invite failure. While her security team assumed she was preparing for the executions, Silera quietly disabled tracking protocols and loaded her personal ship with supplies. The other prisoners, Dex asked as they prepared to leave. We can't just abandon them. My ship can't hold 13 people undetected, Silera replied, checking Kira's improvised safety harness. But I've left evidence pointing to a prison break. When they discover you're gone, they'll assume the others escaped to different coordinates. It wasn't perfect, but it might buy the remaining humans time to reach one of the sanctuary colonies. Dex nodded reluctantly, understanding the terrible mathematics of survival. The ship Vagrant Star was built for stealth and speed, a scout vessel perfect for reconnaissance missions. As they lifted off from Thriller 9, Silera felt something she'd never experienced before, the thrill of freedom. Where are we going? Dex asked, settling into the co-pilot's seat with Kira on his lap. The neutral zone. There are worlds there where questions aren't asked. She paused, then added quietly, I've transferred my personal funds to an untraceable account. It should be enough to start over. Start over as what? You're abandoning everything you've ever known. The weight of that truth settled over her. Her rank, her purpose, her entire identity. All of it was now behind them, growing smaller with each parsec they traveled. I'm gaining everything that matters, she said, watching Kira play with a strand of her hair. The first 3 days passed in relative peace. They fell into a natural rhythm. Dex handling navigation, while Silara managed ship systems, both of them sharing the care of Kira. The baby seemed to thrive in the close quarters, delighting in having both of her chosen parents constantly near. It was during the quiet moments that Silara found herself truly seeing Dex. The way he hummed old Earth songs to soothe Kira, his gentle hands as he fed her, the protective way he watched the scanner displays, always alert for threats. "You're staring," he said one evening as they sat in the small galley, Kira asleep between them. "I'm observing," Silara corrected, but she felt heat rise in her cheeks. Another new sensation. "What do you see?" The honest answer would have been, "Someone who makes me feel alive. Someone who smiled does strange things to my neural pathways. Someone I think about constantly. A good father," she said instead. Dex's expression softened. "She's not technically mine, you know. Her parents died in the Earth evacuation. He touched Kira's tiny hand. "She needed someone. You chose to protect her. That makes you her father in every way that matters." "And what does that make you?" The question hung in the air between them. Silara felt her heart race, that increasingly familiar response to moments of emotional intensity. "I don't know," she admitted. "My kind don't have families. We're created, not born. I don't have a word for what I am to her." "Then make one," Dex said softly. "That's what we're doing, isn't it? Creating something new." Their eyes met across the small table, and Silara felt the pull between them like gravity. Slowly, carefully, Dex reached across and took her hand. "I never thought I'd feel this way about anyone again," he whispered. "After Earth, after losing everything. I thought I was done with hope. Hope is statistically improbable in our situation." Silara replied, but she didn't pull her hand away. "So does love. But here we are." The word hung between them like a bridge waiting to be crossed. Love, not just the protective bond they shared with Kira, but something deeper, more complex. Something that made Silara's engineered heart race and her logical mind short-circuit. "I don't know how to love someone," she confessed. "I wasn't made for it. Neither was I, anymore. But maybe we can learn together." He lifted their joined hands and pressed his lips to her knuckles, a gesture so gentle and reverent that it took her breath away. Every nerve ending in her body seemed to activate at once, sending cascades of sensation through her consciousness. "Dex, I love you," he said simply. "I love how you hold her. I love how you question everything you were taught when it conflicts with what you feel. I love that you chose us over everything else." The confession broke something open inside her. All the walls she'd built, all the conditioning she'd endured, crumbled in the face of this simple truth. "I love you too," she whispered, and saying it felt like taking her first real breath. They moved toward each other across the small space, and when their lips met, Silara understood why her creators had feared emotion. This wasn't weakness. It was power beyond measure. It was connection that transcended logic, touch that rewrote neural pathways, intimacy that made her feel more herself than she'd ever been. The kiss was soft, exploratory, full of wonder and careful passion. When they finally parted, both were breathing hard. "The proximity alarms," Dex said suddenly, and they both turned to the scanner display. 3 ships had dropped out of hyperspace behind them. Sleek, predatory vessels bearing the insignia of Silara's former command. "They found us," she said, her blood turning to ice. "How long do we have?" 6 hours, maybe less. She was already moving to the pilot's seat, her training taking over. "Strap in, both of you." As the vagrant star leaped into higher warp, Silara felt the weight of their pursuers like a physical presence. Her own people, her former people, were hunting them with the same cold efficiency she'd once embodied. But as she glanced back at Dex securing Kira in her safety seat, at the man she loved protecting the child they both adored, Silara knew she'd made the right choice. Love might be illogical, but it was also the most powerful force in the universe. And she was about to prove it. The asteroid field of Kepler 442 provided temporary sanctuary, but Silera knew it was only delaying the inevitable. Her former comrades were methodical hunters. They would search every rock, every crevice, until they found their prey. There, Dex pointed to a massive asteroid with deep caverns. We could hide there. For how long? Silera maneuvered the ship deeper into the field. They have siege protocols. They'll wait us out. In the passenger compartment, Kira had begun to fuss, sensing the tension around her. The baby's cries seemed to echo their own desperation. Maybe we could negotiate, Dex suggested. Explain that we're not a threat. They don't negotiate with traitors. Silera's voice was flat, final. I know because I used to be one of them. The comm system crackled to life, and General Crox's voice filled the cabin. Commander Silera, you will surrender the stolen vessel and submit to custody. You have 1 hour to comply. Silera switched off the comm without responding. 1 hour, barely enough time to think, let alone find a miracle. There is one possibility, she said slowly, an idea forming. The Phantom Gate. Dex frowned. I've never heard of it. Classified military installation. A prototype jump gate that can transport ships instantly across the galaxy. It's in this system, hidden in the gas giant's rings. And the catch. It's experimental. 50% failure rate. The ships that don't make it through. She didn't need to finish. They both understood. So we have a choice between certain death and possible death, Dex said grimly. The math is favorable. This isn't about math anymore, is it? He reached for her hand. This is about faith. Kira's cries intensified, and without thinking, both parents reached for her simultaneously. As they lifted her together, the baby quieted, looking between them with those impossibly blue eyes. She trusts us, Dex said softly. Completely. Then we don't let her down. The flight to the gas giant was a nightmare of evasive maneuvers and near misses. Silara's former teammates were skilled, but she had advantages they didn't, desperation, and something to fight for beyond duty. The Phantom Gate hung in the planet's rings like a metal moon, its surface covered in exotic energy conduits and reality-bending field generators. As they approached, warning beacons activated. Unauthorized vessel, you are entering restricted space. Withdraw immediately or face destruction. Override code Zeta 77 Alpha. Silera transmitted. Commander Silera requesting emergency transit. Commander Silera is listed as a fugitive. You are not authorized. Silera cut the transmission and pushed the engines to maximum. We're going through. The gate's energy fields began to activate, space itself seeming to bend and twist around the massive structure. But behind them, the pursuit ships were closing fast. They're powering weapons, Dex reported, his voice tight with strain. I know. Silera's hands flew over the controls, preparing for the jump. Hold on to her. The first plasma bolt streaked past their hull. The second barrage found its mark, sending shockwaves through the ship. Emergency alarms blared as systems failed throughout the vessel. Hull breach in the engine compartment, Dex called out. We're losing power. Through the chaos, Kira had begun crying again. Not the simple fussing of before, but the deep, terrified wails of a child who sensed mortal danger. The sound cut through Silera like a blade. I can reroute power from life support, she said, her fingers already moving across the damaged controls. But the atmosphere won't last long. Do it. The gate's energy field reached critical mass, reality warping around them in impossible geometries. But their ship was dying, systems failing one by one. We're not going to make it, Dex said quietly, still holding Kira close. Silera looked at them, at the man she loved and the child who had taught her to love, and made her choice. The escape pod, she said, her voice perfectly calm. It has enough power to make the jump. What about you? Someone has to pilot the ship through. The automatic systems are damaged. Understanding dawned in Dex's eyes. No, We go together or not at all. The pod only holds 2 people safely. She was already moving, gathering Kira's supplies. You and Kira can make it to the sanctuary worlds. Start over. I won't leave you. You have to. She pressed the baby into his arms, her own hands shaking. She needs you. She needs someone who can love her the way she deserves. She needs her mother too. The word hit her like a physical blow. Mother. She'd never dared claim the title, but hearing it from him made it real, made it true. Then I'll find my way back to you, she whispered, pulling them both into a fierce embrace. Both of you, I promise. They kissed desperately, passionately, pouring all their love and hope and terror into that single moment of connection. When they parted, both were crying. Tears that marked the end of one life and the beginning of another. I love you, Dex whispered as she sealed him and Kira into the escape pod. I love you too. Both of you, always. The pod ejected just as the gate's field reached its peak. Silara watched it disappear into the swirling vortex of twisted spacetime, carrying her heart with it. Then she turned back to the controls of her dying ship and began the most important flight of her life. The vagrant star entered the gate at the exact moment her engines failed completely. Reality collapsed around her in a cascade of impossible colors and sensations. She felt herself coming apart at the molecular level, then reassembling in patterns that defied physics. When the light faded, she found herself drifting in space near a blue-green world she didn't recognize. Her ship was dying, but she was alive. More importantly, long-range scans detected the escape pod's beacon on the planet's surface. They had made it. 3 days later, Silara stood on a beach of golden sand, watching Dex teach Kira to walk in the shallow waves. The baby's laughter carried on the ocean breeze, pure and joyful and free. You found us, Dex said, not turning around but somehow knowing she was there. I promised I would. He stood and walked to her, Kira balanced on his hip. The baby reached for Silara immediately, babbling excited nonsense that sounded like welcome home. So what now? Dex asked, settling beside her as they watched the alien sunset paint the sky in impossible colors. Now we learn, Silara said, taking his free hand while Kira played with her hair. We learn to be a family. We learn to be happy. We learn that love isn't weakness. It's the strongest force in the universe. And if they find us again, then we'll face it together, all of us. As the stars began to appear in the darkening sky, Silara felt something she'd never experienced before. Complete peace. She had lost everything she was supposed to be and found everything she was meant to become. She was no longer a commander, no longer a weapon. She was a mother, a lover, a woman who had chosen her own destiny. And for the first time in her engineered life, that was enough.